What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here. What I got for your face balls today, we're going to do a little knife strife. I haven't done this for a little while, but we're just going to put two knives head to head and see which one wins. And the two in question are these two. And then I screw up the flip. So, in my left hand, we have the EMP EDC Nimble. EMP stands for Every Man's Pocket. And then over here we have the Urban EDC Supply F 5.5. This one here is designed by Jesper Voxnes, and this one is designed by Mr. EMP himself, is John Rusk. Now, I've met Jesper at some different knife shows and whatnot. Super cool guy. You can see a lot of his design language in many of the knives that he does. But this happens to be the very first pocket knife, the Nimble, done by John Rusk. So we're talking about, you know, what arguably is a world-renowned knife designer in Jesper Voxnes. And, you know, he's done all sorts of stuff for a bunch of different companies. And this guy who started, you know, kind of a boutique brand, if you will, EMP EDC and the Nimble. And the reason, I think, is pretty obvious. These two knives fit very well pitted against one another for many reasons. And we're just going to get right into it. So thanks a lot to Lefty EDC, Kevin over at Lefty. He was the reason that I got my hands on both of these. These were both loaners. So I don't own either one of these knives. However, I have spent a little time with them, and I am prepared to make some statements here. So, real quick, I'm going to throw them both down, try and line them up best I can, pivot to pivot, and then we're going to throw down what I think is a very good representation for both of these guys, the Para 3. So we'll line that one up as well. Of course, it won't sit there nice because of the pocket clip, but you see here, very, very similar in carry. Pretty much across the board. All three of these are roughly the same dimensions in the pocket, so they all carry, you know, pretty similar. They all have, you know, forward choils. They have roughly about the same cutting edge, and, you know, really the only kind of real serious difference here is opening method, materials. And, you know, in the case of the Para 3, we've got a thumb ramp. On the other two, we do not. But you can see here that these three knives are very, very similar. So using the Para 3 as a benchmark, you know, I actually like the Para 3 better than the PM2. You know, generally speaking, I like larger knives, but the Para 3 just works better in my hand. Now, of course, I always use it choked up like so. But this is one of my Maximet Para 3s, which I have, I think, 3 of these. They're just kind of scattered around, and I beat the shit out of them all the time. So this was actually the test bed for the CME. If you want to check those out, or if you have any questions or whatever, you can email me there. But all the information is on the website, OCDforedc.com. So go check those out. Anyway, these two knives here. So what we're looking at, we'll just talk about the Nimble first. So we have a titanium frame lock. Of course, you have 3 opening methods here. You can flick it, of course, with your finger or your thumb. And then you've got a flipper tab that is very similar to a Vero Engineering design. And then you also have a front flipper. Functions all 3 ways extremely well. So if you like those kinds of opening methods, you know, really the only thing that it's missing here is a thumb stud. But, you know, you can use your thumb and do it that way. Personally, I just like kind of spidey flicking it, if you will. It works extremely well. This one here is the black washed blade, and I think this is DLC coating, but titanium frame lock, black wash blade, M390 blade steel, DLC coated clip and hardware, and you know, it's a well-made knife. I can't remember who was made. I can't remember if this is Riot or Best Tech. I just don't remember. Certainly, this is a Chinese-made knife, and it comes in a bunch of different variations. Now, there was or is a pre-order for this, and you know there'll be more in the future. So if you missed out on this pre-order, you know, I'm sure that EMP has got, you know, you can sign up for their newsletter, that kind of a thing, or whatever. So these get sold in a pre-order configuration. Now, whether or not he's going to use dealers in the future, I'm not really sure. But I've never talked to Mr. Rusk. But anyway, this is his first design. And he's got a few other things on the website. And he's got a new model coming out called the Thick Boy, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. Anyway, now, on to this. This is designed by Jesper Voxnes, like I said. This is a carbon fiber handled liner lock with titanium liners. You can see right down in there, L-Max blade steel. Again, not 100% sure on where this is made. I kind of think this is Riot, but I could be wrong on that. Either way, definitely made overseas in China, and you can purchase it through Urban EDC Supply. Now, the knives, when they're in the closed position, again, very similar in size. The F5.5 is a little bit thicker. And then you can see here, you do have a titanium fold-over style sheet metal clip. It is pretty tall, but it does offer, you know, decent space for the seam on your pants, or the hem on your pocket edge. So that part's nice. But there you go. And as far as opening method here, we only have the blade hole, so you can thumb flick it as well as spidey flick it. Although for my hand, it's a little bit goofy. I don't like, I mean, the action on it's fine, but I think it's really more just a size thing. The hole is very small, and so you can really only get it in one location. But it does work well for thumb flicking for me. It's just, and it works well spidey flicking as well. I don't want to sound like it doesn't. I just kind of have to fiddle around with it a little bit to get the position of it correct in my hand. But you know, once I get it there, it works just fine. The detent is well tuned for this type of deployment method. But that is, you know, of course, you can two-hand it as well. And as well on the Nimble, you can do that also. So certainly in the deployment method arena, the Nimble has got more to offer. But you know, I don't mind a hole opening. It works extremely well. However, this hole is so small. I mean, you compare the size there, and, you know, generally, I like a small hole. However, in this case, it's a little bit fiddly. Now, if your hand happens to work perfectly for this one, and, you know, when you just grab the knife and put it in your hand, and, you know, it's kind of that way for my thumb. The thumb opening for me, that's just a lot easier, but I do like spidey flicking. This one just seems to be a little bit fiddly to do that with. But otherwise, in the pocket, very similar. One of the main differences here is you do have this milled titanium clip here, and we're going to get into that and what my thoughts are on it. Neither one is reversible clip, but, you know, it is what it is. Okay. Now, let's get into some dimensions here. Let me grab my measuring stick. We'll just run down the Nimble first. So, overall blade length, 2.981 inches. And cutting edge, we're just going to measure it on the straight, just to make this easy. Basically 2.5 inches of cutting edge. Handle length is 3.957, so just under 4 inches. Handle thickness is 4.73. And let me grab my scale here real quick. All right. We got 3.6 ounces. Almost, basically call it 3.7. It's 3.69. All right. On the F5.5, overall blade length 2.867. Cutting edge, about 2.6, just over 2.6 inches in cutting edge. And handle length is right at 4 inches. And thickness is 0.473, so just under half an inch in thickness. And the weight on this guy a little bit lighter at 3.266. What was this one again? I don't remember. 3.7. Okay. All right. So there you go. There's kind of your dimensions and whatnot, and how that compares to the Para 3 overall blade length on the Para 3, 2.878. We've got a cutting edge here of 2.637, and then handle length is 4.29 inches. So, and then if I remember right, this is just under a half of an inch thick as well. Yeah, 0.45. So pretty similar. Handle is just slightly longer on the Para 3 than these other two, but you know, pretty similar knives here. But we'll set the Para 3 off to the side because that's not what we're talking about here. Okay, so both of these coming from China. Both of them are, you know, you have a blade hole for deployment, as well as the flipper tab and the front flipper on the Nimble. You know, we've got this frag pattern tie here. Both, you know, very well made, both riding on bearings. This one is a liner lock. Now, blade stock on both of these, this is where I wish on both knives we would see a change, because in this case here we got 158 thousandths. I think this is 4mm, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's right at 4mm. And on the Nimble, this I think 3.5. Yeah, 3.5mm, which honestly is just way, way bigger and thicker than either one of them need to be. You know, for both of these knives, they just don't need to be that thick. In comparison, the Maximet, what do we got here? Yeah, 3.5mm blade stock on the Para 3 as well. But, you know, this is a really tall flat grind. And so actually, right out here, we dropped to, well, 3.3mm right up here. But, you know, with the distal taper, you can definitely see a pretty big difference there in the blade stock thickness on the F5.5. And here, let's see if I can just hold all three of them up there. But for whatever the reason, you know, and I think, well, I actually did a little bit of reading on the F5.5, and, you know, they brag about the 4mm blade stock, and I just don't understand it at all in a knife like this. It makes, you know, because the handle's really really lightweight, it makes it feel nose heavy. And honestly, you know, we could have like 2.5mm blade stock here and this thing would function perfectly. So anyway, I guess they intend you to do some prying with this. I don't really understand it. Now, one of the things that I find a little bit strange here where this jimping is, when you're in the choked up position, it does work well for me. But if you're back here, that jimping is really not functional. I mean, I can reach it, certainly. You know, I can get my thumb up in that position, but it just seems odd. Like, to me, I would have wished that they, you know, would have rather seen them put the jimping all the way across the top of the spine. You know, maybe even come out a little further and go back further. It just seems a little bit strange. Now, in this type of a scenario, it works really well. My index finger lands right there. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like, one, I guess to me, I would have rather seen them ran it the whole way or just not put it there at all. But that's just me. That's really more of an aesthetic thing than anything. You can see here on the Nimble, we have a really long section of jimping on the spine. Just to give you an idea, the difference there. So, you know, quite a difference on the two knives. And on the Nimble, you can see that we have a real neutral handle here. It's not really kind of forcing your fingers. I mean, you have that first kind of primary area, and then the rest is just, you know, a gradual curve. Now, in this choked up position, this is one of the best, ergonomically, this is one of the best little knives that I've ever handled. Just plain and simple. This thing is fantastic ergonomically for me. And, you know, everybody's got a different hand, but here you've got a little more distinct bump out here. And then the forward choil is, there's a height difference here. It just seems, I don't know. It just isn't as comfortable in hand for me. Part of that is how far this clip sticks up. For it being a very short clip, it sticks up quite far. Just to give you an understanding of that, I think I have one here. Yes. So you can see here on the mini deep carry clip for the Benchmade bug out, you can see that it tapers down. And on the 5.5, it's the same distance, and then you have this big kind of curl up at the end. It's just quite a distinct difference in clip there. If you can see that, hopefully I can show that. And it makes it for, it just makes for, it just feels odd in the hand. It's not necessarily uncomfortable. It just kind of feels weird. And here, you know, I'm gripping onto it with my ring finger and my pinky in the choked up position. If I choke back, I guess it's not terrible right here. And here I'm, you know, my middle finger and my ring finger are gripping onto the clip. But in my right hand, it hits right in this area, and it just isn't super comfortable. So, although I do like the way the clip functions, it just isn't real comfortable in hand. So, overall, one other thing, price. So and there are variations of both of these knives, but I'm pretty sure that all the F5.5s are right at $300, $299, and the Nimbles are $269. So you're $30 cheaper on the Nimble. And in my opinion, for this size knife, Mr. Rusk just absolutely killed it. Now, I do have a few things that I wish would change about this knife, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But for me, out of these two, save the $30 and buy the Nimble, because in my opinion, it's just a better knife. You have multiple deployment options, which for me, I like the Spidey flick, so I probably really wouldn't use the front flipper or the flipper tab that often. But, you know, when you're just fidgeting with something or whatever, you know, it's good to have options, right? Over here, you just don't have any of those options. Now, I do really like the carbon fiber on this one. It's beautiful. It's well done. It feels good in hand. The chamfering is very nice. And it overall just looks good. I like the aesthetic of the sheepfoot blade. That part is great. But it's not as comfortable in hand. It's more expensive. The clip is not as comfortable, although the clip does function really well. And the deployment hole is just really small. And the blade stock is too thick, in my opinion. So, all of those things add up for a knife that's just, for me, it's just okay. Like, I mean, I know people are raging about this thing, and there's a ton of people out there that really love it, and great, good for them. For me, it's kind of forgettable, honestly. You know, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of really good knives out there today, and so you got to be coming in hot with something to you know, make it memorable and whatnot. And this just isn't. And, you know, that's just my opinion. But, you know, nothing wrong with it. If you like it and it's your jam, go for it. They're $300. You can buy them right now at Urban EDC Supply. They do come in a few different variations. They did have one that had some titanium scales instead of carbon fiber, and it had some milling on it that was kind of cool looking. So just aesthetically, that looked a little bit better. But to me, for this knife to even make it into my collection, it would have to drop about 2 millimeters off of that blade stock. You know, do something different with the clip, and make a larger opening hole and get away from, you know, I'd rather see this gone, this protuberance right here, as well as, you know, make this area smaller, move this forward, like make it to where the forward choil was more usable, because right now it's just really, really small. So yeah, anyway, so that's on the F5.5. On the Nimble here, one thing that I think is very strange, which I understand because of just the natural curvature and stuff here, but if you look at the way the pocket clip is made, let me see if I got a driver here. Are those? Yeah, they're T6. I'm going to go ahead and take this clip off real quick, which I have not disassembled either one of these knives, but I just want to show you something. So, you know, this goes in on the outside of your pocket, right? And the angle of the dangle there is, you know, when this is in the outside of your pocket generally is here. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go grab a pair of pants. It'll make this much easier. All right, I'm back in here. I just grabbed a pair of some work pants here. These actually have got an extra little flap of material on there, so it's kind of doubled up right in that spot for your pocket knife, which is really cool. But when you look at the way your pocket is shaped, and you look at the way that this goes in there, so I still have the screws out of this pocket clip, but you can see where the clip, you know, how the clip is canted in there. So when you put the pocket clip on, it's just riding right on that point, and you've got this severe angle. So what ends up happening is the weight of the knife ends up canting the knife in towards your pocket to where it rides like that. Now, the problem with that is that it's moving towards the inside of your pocket, right? So, like I said, again, I understand why he made it this way, because of the way the ass end of the knife is shaped, and he was trying to make the clip as deep carry as possible. And I get that, and I appreciate it. However, you know, having that angle, because the where your pocket bottoms out inside that clip is right up here, and that's the angle it's on. When it's in your pocket, it always, instead of hanging like this over in the corner of your pocket and staying over there, it ends up canting over like so, and ends up, you know, coming out into the midsection of your pocket space, if you will. So, you know, just because the ass end of the knife is like this, and you know, to me, it would have been better, because you're not going to be any deeper than this spot right here. They should have made that straight right there, because then the pocket, or it would have stayed, and you would have, you know, had this much hanging out of your pocket, which, you know, you can argue maybe you want it deeper and you'd rather have it hanging like this, but it would be better if that were just straight underneath there, so the pocket, you know, hit all at once. Now, I understand pants are made differently and whatnot, but this is something that I experienced on the shorts that I carried this with, as well as a pair of pants. And this knife just kept becoming, you know, canted in my pocket. So that was just kind of interesting. Not a deal breaker, but just something that, you know, if I were to give it some sort of a negative, these are different length screws. Yeah, they look like it. Huh. Okay. There we go. So that's just one thing on the pocket clip. The other thing is the pocket clip's actually very comfortable in hand, which is great. Because it's so broad on the face, you know, so even though you have this raised area, it's not uncomfortable at all in hand. Now, because this is a right side carry only, you know, I'm just kind of judging this in the right hand carry. Even in the left hand, it's not bad at all. The pocket clip does provide good retention. For me personally, I like the frag pattern, although this thing's kind of a pocket eater a little bit because the clip is a bit stiff. That frag pattern under the clip ends up kind of tearing at your pocket a bit. Now, so if this were mine and I was keeping it, I would mill the frag pattern off underneath that clip, you know, and just have the frag pattern up until that point. I mean, you really can't see any of it anyway. So, yeah, it just seems kind of silly to have that frag pattern under the clip when you can't even see it, because the clip does cover quite a bit. The other thing that I would like to see on this particular knife, I would absolutely love it if they would make this thing into a liner lock and make the clip reversible. Personally, I would like to see this knife have a clip that mounts in a different orientation and make it reversible and make this a liner lock, and this thing would absolutely be a home run. I mean, it would just be fan-freaking-tastic. So anyway, John Rusk, you did a fantastic job on this knife for your first go-around, man. It's awesome. I really dig it, and yeah, just good on you. I'm not big on small knives, and this one is one of the best small knives that I've handled in quite some time. Over here on the F5.5, yeah, to me, it's just another Chinese knife that costs $300 that is just kind of okay. You know, I don't mind the silhouette, the look of it, I think is pretty good. I mean, I guess that's really what I have to say here, is that visually and aesthetically, I really like this knife. Functionally, I really like the pocket clip in the pocket, and the rest of it is, yeah, not my bag. So anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts. Knife Strife, by far, the winner is the Nimble. No doubt about it. And if they do this in an XL variant, John Rusk, do this liner lock XL, I'm in there like swimwear, man, for sure. So anyway, Lefty, thanks so much for helping me get my hands on both of these. I really enjoyed checking them out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Peace. I'm gone. Hey!